Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our next ChatJSB. I am particularly excited to have our guest today because I reconnected with Maria Guinand in Barcelona, and I had not seen her. We won't throw numbers around how many years it had been, but
It doesn't matter.
It had been a while.
We can throw numbers.
It was about 35 years, and I was.
Well, I remember the year was 1991.
It's exactly right. And I was a very young, very green graduate student. And I went to the Oregon Bach Festival where Helmut Rilling, who you're about to hear quite a lot about, ran a conducting masterclass. And there was this extraordinary conductor from Venezuela. And as I said to Maria when I saw her again in Barcelona, I was such a fanboy. She is just a magnificent conductor. Now, because we're going to talk about Bach, I will not spend the 15 minutes that it would require to tell you all what she has done. Maria's career has been absolutely extraordinary and continues at absolute full tilt. But I will say this, that she is the star of the choral scene in Venezuela. She runs the Schola Cantorum there. She has conducted the choir Alberto Grau, but she's been everywhere in the world. And for those of us in Worcester, what is really exciting is that I think it was the year 2000, Maria was the guest conductor at Holy Cross, where she worked with our Pamela Mindell, who is now the conductor of the Worcester Children's Chorus, who you will see many times in the Complete Bach. But this was through Maria's long collaboration with the composer Osvaldo Golijov. Yes, I was going to say it.
Golijov.
Terrible American accent that I have. And she had originated a really important new work, The Passion According to St. Mark. But I'll let her talk about all of that. The only thing I will say, Maria, is that I am bound and determined to get you to Worcester for the Complete Bach, to work with our choirs, and we can see you in action. But first, I just want you to talk about yourself and talk about this career that includes so much new music, but also so much about Bach, and to talk about your big Bach festival in Venezuela. So I'm just going to wind you up and let you go. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris. I am very happy to be here with you today. And it was beautiful to meet with you in Barcelona last summer and to share the stage on this beautiful concert where we were celebrating Bach and Mendelssohn. And you were doing Bach Magnificat and I was doing Mendelssohn's Magnificat. So it was beautiful that we could share music in that amazing hall that we all love so much. And of course, you came up to me and told me the story of your student days in the Oregon Bach Festival. And of course, it brought back so many good memories for me, because that was really a life-changing opportunity when I came to the Oregon Bach Festival. And perhaps I can start from there and then I can go back. At that time, I was already a young conductor doing my own career as a university professor in Venezuela, and also as a conductor of the Cantoria Alberto Grau, that was a very well-renowned women's choir, and also the Schola Cantorum, who was conducted by my husband, Alberto Grau, and I was the assistant conductor. And Roy Salzman, who was the executive director of the Oregon Bach Festival, was also the president of the International Federation for Choral Music. So we have met in choral life, in festivals. The first time I met him was in Vaison-la-Romaine, in a festival in France about 11 years before. And then the creation of the International Federation happened, and Alberto, my husband, happened to be the vice president for Latin America. And then Royce came to Venezuela, I think like 2 years before, like in 1989. We had a beautiful choral festival here, and my choir that year, my women's choir, had won 6 prizes in the Arezzo competition in Italy and Neuchâtel. And it was really in a very good shape, the choir. And Royce heard the choir, and immediately he came up to me and said, Maria, I invite you to come as a student for Helmut Rilling's class. you must meet Helmut. You must be in his class because you have to become also, you have to expand your repertoire and your life as a conductor. So I was extremely excited. And he wanted me to come in the immediate next year, but next year, 1990, was the Second World Choral Symposium happening in the Scandinavian countries. And we were invited with the Schola Cantorum. So I said, Royce, I cannot do this because we are traveling on this major project, but I can do 1991. So he said, okay, come 1991. So there I was, a student in the Oregon Bach Festival, and the major project was Bach Christmas Oratorio, the 6 cantatas of Bach Christmas Oratorio. And of course, I had studied my oratorio. I was an active participant in the class. But when I came to the Oregon Bach Festival and I met Helmut, his way of teaching, his insight in Bach music, his theological thoughts, his precision in the conducting technique, his way to dealing with soloists, singers, instrumentalists, his way to organize rehearsals, his way to interpret music, to go through your score, to understand the details in the score. That was a revelation for me. So I became like a fanatic at that point, and I would say that I would sleep like 4 or 5 hours every night because I was studying. I thought I knew the Christmas oratorio very well, but then I realized I only knew like 5%, So I had to work and work, and it was a life-changing experience for me to be there during those 2 weeks. And in that time, I remember in Venezuela, in my country, we had, of course, El Sistema of youth orchestras and the Fundación Schola Cantorum, and Maestro Abreu, who was the founder of El Sistema, was the Minister of Culture in those days. And I went to to a conversation that Helmut did with his manager in Stuttgart, Andreas Keller, where they talked to us, and they said all the work they were doing in the world, especially in Eastern Europe, they have been doing, and in some Latin American countries, to promote Bach music through a Bach academy, through series of academies. They will come with a set repertoire. Helmut will lead the whole team of teachers, and he will be the teacher of a conducting class, but he will bring along string teachers, woodwinds, vocal teachers to incorporate young people into Bach thought, into Bach music and interpretation. Remember, those were days where Bach music was only for specialized groups and orchestras. So everybody was little afraid of moving forward and performing Bach with your choirs and orchestras and all that. So when I heard that in that conversation, I said, this is the right people to come to Venezuela to start a Bach project there. So immediately I called Dr. Abreu and I said, I am here in the best place and I have met these people and they have this project and we should bring them down. So immediately he was a very enthusiastic man and said, Maria, we have to create a Bach Academy in Venezuela. Tell them to come.
Great.
So I went to a conversation with Helmut and Andreas Keller and said, well, I am here, a young person. This is my first time. I come from Venezuela. They didn't know anything about Venezuela. They had been in Mexico or Brazil, but in Argentina, but my country, no. And I said, you will love it. You will really see what are we doing there with young people and youth. And we want to do a Bach Academy, the first one with you. So Helmut suggested, okay, because it's Spanish-speaking country and all that, let's do Bach B minor mass. Wow, easy.
Yeah.
And I said, great. So we planned to do that for 1993.
Maria,
was our
quick question. Was there, what kind of tradition of choral singing for the music of Bach was there at this point in Venezuela?
Well, in Venezuela, we have sang Bach music, you know, we have done some performances of Christmas oratorio or St. Matthew Passion and some cantatas, because there were some conductors here who brought this music,
Yeah.
you know, to the scene. But when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you at the end of the decade of the 80s and beginning of the 90s. And we had these performances were done perhaps in the 70s, early 80s. But all these young people that were now learning how to play, sing, and do that, they were learning more, let's say, romantic repertoire, more bulky repertoire with many violins, many cellos, 100 voices, and you know, because we needed to get this machine going.
Yeah.
You know, it was not, could not be smaller. And Bach music, perhaps a choral was great, but you know, the polyphonic textures that are complicated. So we were doing more. I mean, we will do Messiah with, I don't know, 300 people.
Yeah.
But Messiah
is not the B minor mass.
It's not the B minor mass. So, so I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to bring a specialist with all these teachers to tell us more, you know, to bring us more into not only Bach, but Bach and the romantics, the German romantics, you know, Mendelssohn, Brahms, Bruckner, that we were not doing so much, you know, chorally, because we are a Spanish-speaking country. So German language here was not the language to be singing. So we created that in 1993. But still in 1992, I was invited by Helmut Rilling to go to Stuttgart and also be a student in his class there in the Bach Academy. And there we learned 6 cantatas that I will never forget. And we learned Soul from Handel.
Oh, right.
An oratorio that I have very seldom seen performed.
Right.
And it was, well, I mean, the Gesprächkonzert by Helmut, you know, his lecture concerts were so revealing, so enlightening. So we did our Bach Academy in Caracas in 1993 with a B minor mass. It was a huge choir. We had 100 singers. We had a huge orchestra. There were like 70 players.
Oh my God.
And Helmut said, okay, this is a tropic. And I said, yes, here everything grows in quantity. So he said, well, I may be criticized. And I said, I don't care, you know. That's the way we are, and that's what we need.
Yeah.
So we did with Helmut Bach Academies in Caracas several years, in other cities of Venezuela, in Barquisimeto, in Mérida. So we went with, and we did St. John Passion, cantatas, Elijah, Brahms Requiem, B minor mass, cantatas, you know, so we did, and a lot of instrumental music because there were many good instrumentalists. And
was
all
this,
these,
was this all under the umbrella of El Sistema?
It was under the umbrella of El Sistema and the Schola Cantorum, both.
Gotcha.
So we worked together, and this project spanned for 20 years. So we had this project until 2012.
Oh,
we could keep it. So that was the last time Helmut came with the Gehinger Cantorei, and we could recognize his work. But we knew, I was clear, and we knew that life was going to be going other directions, and it was going to be difficult to keep this project. But we were very lucky. We got a donation of the full Bärenreiter Bach scores, and of the full recording of Helmut, of Bach, that from Helmut. So we have a beauty, and we could buy at that time a wonderful harpsichord and an organ. So, and we keep all that as very precious. So we continue to do Bach as much as we can, but in another, you know, in the reality of a country that has been through and is through many difficulties at the moment. But this is what I can tell you a story. And previous to that, of course, I studied music in Venezuela with Alberto Grau, my husband, who was my piano teacher, and with teachers that were wonderful at the music school in the 60s and 70s. And then I could go to England to do my bachelor's and my master's degree in Bristol University. But those were, and to do my choral conducting degree with Alberto here in Venezuela. So I have been really very well prepared academically when I came to Oregon and I met with Helmut, because also I was professionally working.
Yeah.
So, and I knew what I wanted for my country, and I knew what I wanted to create here. And it was beautiful to, get all the stars aligned and be able to push into that wonderful years. We had 2 beautiful decades, wonderful. And I only have gratitude. And of course, everybody loved Helmut very much here in Venezuela. And even I had her eldest daughter, Sarah, was living in my home for almost a year, at some point in her life. So it has become a very beautiful, also human relationship with the Rillings family.
I'm going to come back because I have some questions about your project, but just for people who may not know Helmut Rilling's work, what you are saying, I mean, and even I've got goosebumps. I think for those of us who loved Bach anyway, we showed up in Oregon, and you cannot swing a broom in America without hitting a choral conductor who went to the Oregon Bach. It was just what you did. For our generation, everybody went to the Oregon Bach Festival. And the thing about this guy, I mean, I don't think I've ever been more in awe of anybody in my life. I think I told you this in Barcelona. I found myself walking to class one day and ended up walking right next to him. And I was so tongue-tied, I could barely even say anything, because this man is extraordinary. So he conducts everything from memory, including all the recitatives in the Passions, which is just incredible. And as you say, he's just, the way he rehearses is amazing. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, because I know that you took this on, as I have in my own career, the explaining of Bach's music ahead of a concert so the audiences can get a sense of what to listen for. In the Complete Bach, we are launching a project where I'm doing a whole lot of podcasts like this, but I didn't even understand any of it before I heard Helmut Rilling do his presentations. Can you talk about those?
Well, I think that Helmut Rilling for me opened a window to understand really Bach vocal music first, that relates so much to his theological beliefs and insights. And of course, every time, I mean, when you do a cantata today, in the world of today, in 2024, it's already an old thinking. It's old texts, old images. You have to reinterpret everything that is being said in words and even in music. And I find that more with the cantatas than with anything else, because the cantatas are extremely specific to a time, to a cultural setting, to a religious belief. And Helmut was able to get us to understand, that, to bring us to the why this, why that, why is this here, why is Bach using that? I mean, and explaining us the concepts and the Bach mind, that of course some people may say, well, this is just making up ideas, or no, we all know that Bach music is full of symbolism.
Yeah.
It's full of rhetoric. And that he, of course, he didn't have time to write a book about all his rhetorics and his symbols, but that has been, let's say, studied and discussed by hundreds of Bach scholars. So what Helmut did was really bring to us in capsules, all that scholarly thinking and research through one cantata, through one major work. It was not his invention. He was a very well-informed, he is a very well-informed man. He read a lot. He belonged to Bach societies. He met with the most important Bach scholars. And he was part of all these discussions of the making of the new editions of the Writer. Why should this have this bowing or not this bowing? I mean, and he has his own ideas also of interpretation. So I think that he's not the only one, but he's the one that we had close to us. Yeah. Because in relation to other Bach scholars in the world, Helmut Rilling had the love for teaching and the generosity of sharing. He was not the God artist on stage to do, to be like the priest of Bach.
Yeah.
And then you just have to say amen. No, he wanted to share and to give everybody. And I think this is his legacy. That's his legacy.
I agree.
That he gave, that he had all this knowledge in himself, and he just gave it in a very generous way to all his pupils, to his audiences, to his singers, to his players. So he was a very loved man and conductor and teacher.
Oh, absolutely true. So I'm wondering, because you also are such a passionate teacher, those 20 years of the Bach Academy in Venezuela, what has the result of that been? So you finished, 12 years ago. Do you have all of these wonderful Venezuelan conductors of Bach's music and great singers and great players? What has happened to?
Well, many of them, Venezuela is sadly is a country that more than 9 million people have emigrated from this country. But I have to say that through the Bach Academies, we formed many conductors, singers, instrumentalists that today are working all over the world and are very good, trained in this style. Now in Venezuela, we have fewer, because we have a younger generation. The generation of my scholar today, they are 25, 26 years old. So barely they could not get, they didn't get that experience. Those who got that experience are mostly gone. But we can transmit them this, let's say, this experience. And I keep personally being very fond of teaching them Bach. Especially, I don't want to depend so much of major structures, orchestras, or so we keep small. And I love to do a lot of in my choirs to do very much the motets.
Oh yes,
I love to do the motets, and even if we cannot do the whole motets, I take some movements and teach them well, and teach them how to sing, how to do it, so that they can understand stylistically how to go on. So I think I feel very fortunate, and here in Venezuela, I am in permanent contact with the German community, and there's a German community that loves the Schola, and we have a Humboldt association that has a beautiful hall, and we keep doing concerts there, and we go to the Lutheran church to celebrate. So this 29th of September, this coming 29th, we are going to be in the Lutheran church that is the organ is celebrating the 60th anniversary, and we are going to be singing parts of some of the Michaelis cantatas.
Oh, yes,
Of
yes.
the cantata 130 and cantata 19. So, it's beautiful. I mean, I talked to the pastor yesterday, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do. And oh yes, Maria, yes, please.
And they're the same Michael cantatas are so fantastic. They're so
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
exciting.
So I keep doing some things that I have to combine with others because life has turned into different directions. No.
Is there much of a period instrument movement in Venezuela?
No. We never got there. We really never got there. We had some at some point, but we never got into a real established movement of having good period instruments and instrumentalists.
Yes.
There was no time, Chris. In this country, as I was telling you before, these days we live one day at a time. So in those days, we were so grateful that the country was stable politically because we could plan ahead. We could plan for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, But this has not been the reality of my country. That happened between 1960 and year 2000, 2010, and then that's it. Before it was chaos, and after is just what it is. Yeah. So we need to understand that this is a reality, but it doesn't mean that you cannot do anything. I mean, you can do many things, but you have to keep the pace of the place you are in.
How is El Sistema, how is that program doing these days? And are you still involved yourself?
Well, I'm not involved very much with El Sistema anymore since perhaps 12 years since we finished this project, because I had to devote myself to my own organization to keep it going. And El Sistema is going, perhaps not with the same proportion of impact that it had for some years, but is alive and is working hard, and it's trying to keep on the legacy of Abreu, who died already in 2017.
It strikes me that you and I and Helmut Rilling share something, and was why I wanted to ask about the period instruments, that I think the three of us share this real desire to bring Bach to every musician.
Yes.
And Rilling had ended up being the last modern instrument Bach conductor who was also seen as an expert in Bach, because otherwise the way that the industry has moved, you really, the major Bach conductors work with period instruments. But as you said in passing, like, if we want to bring Bach to every musician, then it can't be music for specialists. It's great that they're doing that and teaching us, but everybody should have a chance to perform Bach.
Well, but I think, Chris, I see it, perhaps the industry, the recording industry wants to show you small ensembles with the small instruments and vocal, but that doesn't mean that Bach has been kept into that into that pigeonhole.
Yes.
I think that because of work like Helmut, Bach was expanded. So everybody knows. I mean, I don't feel at all nervous about doing Bach, with what I have.
Yeah. Well,
and I am very grateful when I hear a performance on period instruments. I am very grateful to be able to pick ideas of sound, interpretation, articulations that you can put into modern instruments, and then you can tell the young instrumentalists, this music should be done in this way. Because I think this is what we have learned from the period instruments is not only that there is a sound, a color. I think that what we have learned especially is that there is a way of playing, that there is a system of playing, that there are articulations that are specific of the instruments that Bach had. And I think that is very helpful. You know, I also studied profoundly at a moment in my life during those years, Gregorian chant.
Oh, right.
With a specialist in Gregorian chant, Luigi Agustoni and Johann Sebastian Bach, who were the scholars working on the new Graduale Triplex, the new book with all the semiology. They were very close to the Abbey of Solesmes. And they were really great specialists on Gregorian chant, which is even more specialized than Bach music. And, Gregorian chant for ages was sang only with the square notation. And that's what you had. And then you thought, well, more or less flexible. But then when all these signs of semiology were understood and could be interpreted in terms of how to sing this music, it was revealing for me, that you could not approach Gregorian chant as it has been approached 100 years ago, because this is new. But of course, you have to become really a very good specialist to understand it. And even if I wanted to understand it, sometimes I would say to them, please, can you conduct this? Because I don't even dare to make the sign of the neume in my hand, because I'm not sure that I am getting where I should get. These neumes reveal not intonation or rhythm partially, but these neumes reveal interpretation, how the music has to be interpreted, how do you have to create tension and not tension and all this. And I think this is the same thing that happens with the Baroque period instruments. They have taught us, what to do. And of course, you can be with a young orchestra and they will not be perfect, but you can tell them, this is the road. I mean, you cannot play this like that. You cannot bow this like that. You please do this and this, and then you can go and get more perfection as you go along if they want to play with you. And also with professional players, but also with the singers.
Oh, yes.
I mean, when you can tell singers, when I can tell singers, how do you sing a motet by Thomas Luis de Victoria if you know Gregorian chant? You will sing in a very different way that if you don't know anything about Gregorian chant. So we need to be informed. We need to know. And I love to have the ability to understand and get from those wonderful performers that perform with period instruments and sing with voices that allow these coloraturas and all this sound to be so beautifully done and precise. And I think it's a learning, but I don't feel that today. I was more scared in the 80s and 90s because it was like a war,
It was.
but not
I'm glad you
now.
see that.
Not now, no.
This was the topic of my PhD thesis, but the problem is I need to talk to somebody of my own generation, because what is beautiful is that young players today, they don't even know that it was a war. Like, to them, oh yes, you play Bach like Bach, you play Mendelssohn like Mendelssohn. But yeah, there was a decade when I would not perform Bach with a choir in public, because any review, if you didn't use period instruments, would be a bad review. And it's really
well, and we had bad reviews, but I didn't care.
which is the right
care.
Which is the
I
right
said, yes.
attitude.
I said, yeah. Why not? You show me something different. Show me how can I do something better here in this country with the forces and the situation I am in and the possibilities we have?
Yeah.
I mean, if you say that, then we have to stop. You cannot do it. It's as if you say, okay, you can only eat what you have in your country.
Yeah.
Eat this and this and this and that. You cannot make a recipe with a good, I don't know, a cheese from France and perhaps you say, okay, well, I am going to make this recipe, but I don't have the cheese from Switzerland or the butter from France and the mushroom from Italy, but I have something else that's similar. Okay, I will try to make the recipe, and it will not be perhaps to be served in the restaurant of the 5-star Michelin, but it's what I can do. So I'll try to do my
I'm
best.
glad you persevered.
I am very
critics.
I am very perseverant, and I love to be autocritical, and I love also to admire the work of my colleagues and say, oh, I love this. This is really at the top, but also I want to say this is the best I can do. And then you have to do your best because you cannot be paralyzed.
Yeah, no,
you have to keep going. You have to keep going.
Maria, I always finish with the same question, so I'm going to ask you, and that is that I would love to know, we would love to know, your favorite piece that you've conducted by Bach, but then if there's anything in the repertoire, like, for example, you're not a cellist, but you love the cello suites. So something you've done and something that you can't do yourself.
Well, the favorite piece I have conducted is the B minor Mass. This is for me the piece I would, if you say, choose from the whole repertoire something you want to do again, I want to do that again. And you just said it, I am not a cellist, and the cello suites are the pieces I love the most. Instrumental pieces, I love the most. I love also the harpsichord concertos.
Oh, yes.
It's a wonderful piece, but the cello suites relate to my soul in a very deep way.
Did you grow up with the Casals recordings?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was he, I'm just trying to think of where he ended up, because of course
in Puerto Rico.
Ah, that's it. But there would have been, you would have known musicians in Venezuela who had known.
Yes. Yeah. And
What?
I am married to a Catalan. So
yes,
Casal,
did he ever know?
Casal was a a light,
yeah,
for the Catalans,
Oh,
for the Republicans, and the way he played his cello suites, it was his style, but also he played some old Catalan melodies. And Alberto, my husband, admired him very much, and he came to Venezuela to perform in the late 60s when he was already very old, to perform his own oratorio El Pesebre.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful oratorio that he wrote.
Oh, I should look for it, because of course
El Pesebre. And there is a beautiful version of El Pesebre now that has been done for organ and choir, written by Klaus Rothhaupt, who is an organist in Germany and was coming to Venezuela with Helmut and the Bach Academy.
So
and he wrote a beautiful,
we all have our homework now.
Yeah.
Marie, it is such a pleasure, and I know all of us in Worcester, we look forward. We've got 11 years of planning, but we are going to find the year for you to come and work with people, and maybe you and I could teach some conducting along the lines of what we learned from Reeling. That would be such a thrill for me.
I love to share with you, because I love your work. Chris, I saw you rehearsing and I saw you performing, and I admire very much what you could get from the forces you had in Barcelona, what you could get in that concert. And that's what I say, you have what you have, and then you try to do as much as you can and get the best from them. And I think you did a great job. So I love
we both learned
to teach with you.
Right?
Yeah.
So good luck down there in Venezuela. I'll be thinking of you.
Thank you, Chris.
And I so much appreciate this.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Adeu. Thank you, Maria.